be best suited for your own personal needs when it resonates with you. Because all in all, too, even though I know we're here talking about food tonight, there's many other aspects to healing. There's mental thinking, there's emotional healing, there's DNA that's going on, there's genetics, there's a lot of things that's happening in there. But we are talking about nutrition, there's stress, there's all of these things. But for me personally, 80% organic raw and living foods and 20% cooked vegan. I do add some of the superfoods, the super green powder and the blue-green algae along with that. I also definitely believe in the Himalayan salt and the Celtic sea salt. And so actually I think really from the whole panel that we're gathering bits and pieces of information that can all come together and work well together.
Weston Price, Dr. Weston Price, he wrote a book based on his observations on many primitive cultures, and his overall conclusion was that you'll be able to produce healthy offsprings with adequate nutrition, providing adequate nutrition for reproduction and work by consuming local, available whole foods. And I think that's a good premise for maintaining above average quality of health and having also a reproductive capacity. We are seeing on our processed food diet, we have lost the reproductive, where about 60% of couples of reproductive age are sterile. We have a culture that about 70% of them are suffering from degenerative diseases that are considered incurable by the medical community. Whole foods is really the foundation, predominantly emphasizing in the most living form. Dr. Gabriel Cousin, an outstanding researcher in his community Tree for Life, and I happened to be fortunate enough to be invited many years ago to write the introduction to spiritual nutrition. He speaks of all raw food diet for optimal experience in spirituality. By that time, you don't have any traumas. You're in a state of unconditional love 24/7, and basically a raw food is perfect and appropriate. But as long as you're an average person, a person who is interested in getting the best out of one's life, a combination of Hippocrates at our raw summit, we concluded that 80% of the diet coming from raw, sprouted, and whole foods and superfoods, and 20% from cooked food, is one that will maintain you in a happy-go-lucky state.
Thank you. That was quite good. So, religion, politics, and nutrition, I think they have a lot in common. We invest our identity and our sense of being right, and we think that there's a line, and somebody else has crossed that line. They might be a little bit different than us, and they might need some conversion or something. So what I want to just first recognize that we all make the best choices from our deep inner soul, from a place of innocence, and we put the best stuff we can figure out in us, and we watch what happens, and we share the information as time goes on and cultures learn. There's patterns, and they're observable. So I think before we decide what's right and wrong, we should just decide to reframe the language to what is appropriate, which raises the question, what are people for? And I think that's the unasked question that will determine what kind of fuel we put in us. Because if people are for just working through the day with just enough energy so that when they're done, they're too tired to have the creativity to create something that is uncontrollable, then all of a sudden, I think a cooked food diet is perfectly appropriate. And if a purpose of being human is to make manifest the creativity and the focus and the motivation and the very love and bliss of what it means to be human into the world with our architecture, our agriculture, and our cultural systems, then it's important that we have something that is going to fuel that. And to my knowledge, I don't claim to be right or wrong, but I look in nature and I see certain patterns, and I'm still looking, and I haven't reached the end of the journey, and I don't think I ever will. But I do know that along comes human beings, and we seem to be the most complex creatures on the planet, and yet turtles live 1,500 years, parrots live 300. Most species live 10 times birth to maturity, or more, give or take some. So a horse, when it's born, it takes 2.5 to 3 years to reach maturity, then they live 25 to 30 years. Okay? If humans had that going on, and we call maturity the day you get your driver's license, which it's not. Scientists actually say around 23, 24. Somewhere in that area, our bones stop developing fully. But we should be living according to that standard, that measure, be it right, be it wrong. It seems to hold true in the animal kingdom. 180 to 240 years. So I'm suggesting that if we want to just live a little bit healthier, 70 to 90 years, because that's what we believe is the role for the human being, then it doesn't matter. You can eat as much of anything you want. Have fun. Okay? But if we want to take our personal evolution to the next level, then we've got to ask, is there a set of principles? And what happens when I practice them? You want to find out which is right for you, you got to do them both. The effects that the people were talking about raw, some of them don't kick in for a year. Are you willing to make that commitment to find out? How many people have I ever seen say, well, you shouldn't do this or you shouldn't do that, but they never tried? I am somebody who haven't eaten a cooked meal in 5 years. Can I say that I would recommend that? No. Somebody gets a cast taken off, do you say run the 5-minute mile? No. Because we've been innocently making choices, consciously or unconsciously from birth, that got toxins in, that got organ systems depleted, and depleted our enzymes, and now we've got to make radical choices in the far direction to get the enzymes back in, to get the heavy metals, the toxicity, that kind of thing out. And I'm just saying, get the shoes off, get in contact with the electromagnetic fields of the earth like the animals, and don't destroy the enzymes in the food, which happens starting at 105 degrees. And at that point, your body's got to make a survival decision. Steal metabolic enzymes from organs, which would be used to grow nice skin and hair long into longevity, or digest some food. And so I'm just guessing that I'm going to keep exploring, and I'll keep giving you feedback what I discover.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chuck. Beautiful. That represents some very high-level thinking, bringing in the subject of what is our purpose and what do we want to do with our lives. So it takes it out of the maintenance, just the basic sustenance level, and puts it into a domain of what can we as human beings actually create with the magnificence and the gift of our lives. So really appreciate that.